Hey guys, Dreaded Wraith here, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a tier list for the DBD mobile killers. First of all, I want to say that this is my opinion, so don't completely destroy me in the comments if you disagree with any of my choices. But I've based this not on killers sort of overpowered add-ons, so just the killer as a general sort of power ability, and I've also based it on very much, again, this is the mobile and how I feel, how easy it is for someone to pick up and then how hard they are to master. So let's get into it. Before we start though, I'd just like to thank everyone who's new to the channel, and if you could hit that like and subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. It massively helps the channel out, and just gain a bit of traction, because we don't have a lot of Dead by Daylight mobile content creators, so I'm trying to support others, and if you can support me, that'd be amazing. Alright, so we're going to start right the way down at the E tier, and unfortunately, and he is one of my favorites, but he is extremely weak, and that is my boy the Wraith. Reason for this, put simply, his base power is awful. On mobile, you get little red icons come up to tell you where the direction he's uncloaking from. So unless you take up one of the two add-on spaces to either use the Silent Bell add-on or the Clapper, which I believe is a yellow add-on to make the bell sort of discernible or which direction it's coming from, the survivors know where you're coming from, they can react accordingly. The slowdown you get is awful. He does have a few good add-ons, so yeah, his speed add-ons are great for you to be able to traverse the map, but again, his chase is awful. Once you are out of stealth, you're essentially just a basic attack killer, just an M1 killer, and he's just weak, and I just strongly think he needs a buff. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next E tier killer, in my opinion, and unfortunately that is Clown. Now, Clown does have a sort of anti-loop mechanic built in with his bottles, which is great, and some of his add-ons, you know, disorientate them, but his map presence is awful. The fact that he has to reload his bottles after so many throws is not great. If you use the auto aim function within Dead by Daylight mobile, it's also quite detrimental to him, because you want to throw the bottles where they're running, not where they are, and the camera sort of locks onto a survivor of where they are. He's recently had a buff so that when he's holding a bottle he's no longer slowed, which you could sort of make the argument that it pushes him up to D tier, but really that reload is so slow, you just lose so much pressure, so for that reason I firmly believe he's an E tier killer. So we'll move on now to the D tier, and here I'm going to put the Legion. A lot of you may disagree with me on this one, and you know, I do like Legion. To me, Legion is great at injuring people. He's great at getting around the map, tracking and injuring survivors, but when it comes to downing them, he is a basic attack killer. He's Trapper without traps. He lacks so much. Yes, you can keep going around and injuring and slowing the game down, but slowing the game down isn't what wins games. Hooks is what wins games. You need to win. You need to get someone on the hook, keep that pressure on, get them off the gens, and he just doesn't have that. His add-ons aren't great either. A lot of the smiley face ones are just awful. I don't know how you rework him, but he is he's D tier for me. Okay, next we have the Pig. This is probably going to be very controversial, but there are a number of reasons why I believe the Pig's down here. Probably above Legion though, so I'm probably being harsh there. She's probably in front of Legion. And the reason for that is she does have a slowdown mechanic built in with her bear traps. Now, unfortunately, these are completely luck based. You could put a trap on someone's head and it be removed on the first try, and you've got not a lot from it. It could be the fourth try, and then you've got quite a lot of slowdown. And that, for me, is one of the reasons why she's this low down. Another one as well is she moves a lot slower when she's crouched. There's a delay in being crouched and uncrouching, which prevents you from getting gen grabs most of the time, because your red stain will appear as you're uncrouching. The lunge is she sort of roars before she lunges, again alerting survivors to where she is. So yeah, she's been nerfed into the ground from the main game, and that I think's really hurt her. So yeah, D tier for me. Up now to C tier, and I'm going to start with the Plague. Plague suffers from a lot of things. She would be a lot higher if she was constantly in her power, where she can down them with that ranged attack, which is just brilliant. But a lot of the time, survivors just sort of won't cleanse, so you don't get your power. And without it, you are just a basic attack killer. The puke on the gens doesn't really slow things down that much, and she does have a build-up where to me, you need the add-ons that get them infected quicker. And the rest of the add-ons are a bit meh for her. So yeah, to start the C tier off, I genuinely think Plague suffers from a lot. And maybe if she'd got a couple of pools of corruption, or if you could choose when you wanted to start one, so you could be in a chase and then go, right, well now I'm going to activate my pool, rather than having to go and activate it and the timer immediately starts ticking, that would make her stronger. But as she is, she's mid tier. So next up we have the Demogorgon. Demogorgon is... I love the Demogorgon. I think he's great. I think the fact that he can put portals down and travel across the map gives him great map pressure. Of course, you do have to waste the early part of the game setting up those portals if you want that late game pressure. His lunge attack, you can use it as a sort of as a feint to say, like, oh, I'm going to lunge and then cancel it and attack, and that's great. And most of the time that sort of works. But I just feel like he could be buffed a little bit more. His rat liver add-on that allows him to walk at 100% speed when he's channeling the abyss or about to lunge, that'd really bump him up to B tier for me. With that map pressure and that lunge and being able to continually hold your ability would be a lot better. But down here, if you're not practiced with the lunge, you're going to miss a lot, and that's going to cost you time, distance, which is going to cost you gens, and ultimately it's going to lose you the game. Okay, and the last one in the C tier is the Trapper. So for me, Trapper, he could be a little bit higher. He, to me, needs the bag add-on as he's part of his base kit, so he can carry more traps. He's the only killer that's got to sort of go around the map and collect his power at the start. You could argue that the Plague also has to do that when she has to collect her secondary power, but she starts with the power. Trapper, you start with, a trap. Great. And I find a lot of the time you have to lose a gen or two to set up a web of these traps. And if the survivors have got objective obsession or a map, they can see your traps and they can go around and disarm them. Now, yes, there's add-ons you can do to sort of stop them disarming them or make them injured, but they only keep them injured. They don't down them unless they run into your traps, that is. And I just feel like survivors, to me, shouldn't be able to use a map to see your traps. That would make him stronger. Adding the ability to sort of carry more traps or start with more traps would be better. I just feel most of the time you lose 2 gens and you basically have to play 4 survivors and 3 gens. So anyway, now we're going to move on to the B tier. And B tier here, I'm going to start with the Huntress. Now the Huntress for me before the update would have been all the way down here in E tier. The reason for that is she suffered from the same problem that the Wraith does. You could hear her hum or her lullaby, and you could see on screen the red marks of where the direction she was approaching from was. With this latest update, they've actually changed that, so you can't tell where her direction is. So now if you get a competent Huntress who can throw hatchets well, down survivors with them, they don't know which way she's coming from now. It certainly makes her a lot stronger. I'm not talking about iridescent heads here. I think they are absolutely disgusting and should be removed. They are not fun to play against. I've played against them, I've played with them. I don't enjoy either. But for me, she's B tier because she is a slow killer. She's 110% movement speed, and I think that sort of your early game pressure is poor with her. So for me, she's B tier. Okay, next up, I am going to put in Ghostface. Now, Ghostface early game is strong. You can get in there, get a gen grab, get some easy downs, get some quick hits. Main problem with him is you get taken out of your power, and until it reloads you have no power other than the ability to crouch, which is not a power. Unless you teabag him, then it might be classed as it, and that could push him up to A tier, but for now we'll leave him in B. The issue there is just constantly being broken out of your power. When you're in it, he is a lot stronger. His add-ons aren't great, apart from the ones that recover faster. I love Ghostface, but he is much better on indoor maps like Larry's, for example. He is a lot stronger on that map because your crouch actually works. Then you can go stealth, crouch down behind windows, pop up, lean through, and it makes him a lot stronger killer. But yeah, he's to me sits happily in the B tier section. Okay, now we've got a Chainsaw Brother coming up, and it's going to be Hillbilly. Hillbilly he's had a change recently. I don't think it really affects him that much. It just prevents people from standing in front of the hook and constantly revving a chainsaw. But his mobility is phenomenal. He can go from one side of the map to the other. On mobile, however, I feel like he's a lot harder to control. So really you can only utilize his chainsaw for straight lines across from one side of the map to the other, which is a shame. I mean, you can move around with it, but it's not easy to get the hang of. His insta-down chainsaw is just great, you know, but is quite hard to pull off. So that's why a lot of hillbillies you'll face will just try and hit you with the hammer. But for me, that mobility, you can't deny how good it is, and that makes him a B tier killer. And for me, the last one we have on the B tier is the other Chainsaw Brother, the Leatherface, who's also recently had the rework. This rework means that he can now chain his chainsaw together. So before, he'd rev it up and he'd do a couple to three sort of swings. What you can do now is use a token to then continue the swing, and then use another token to continue it, and then a last one just to finish it off. And the range you can get on that means that you can really snowball. You can get one down. If you've got infectious fright, someone will scream and you'll just keep chainsawing and then get into another one. I did a video recently where I showed this, where I hit a Dwight and then carried on through the killer shack to hit another one. Honestly, I love Leatherface. I liked him before the rework, but he's much stronger now since the rework. He still struggles from the same old problems of easily being looped, but if you can catch them out in the open with Leatherface, they're going down, plain and simple. Alright, let's move on to the A tier killers, and I am going to start out here with the Oni. And the reason A tier for Oni and not S tier is because until he gets into his power, he suffers from being a basic attack killer. Once he's got his power, however, he is unbelievable. He can insta down before he's in a chase. He can move across the map. That mobility is really easy to use. It's a lot easier to control than Hillbilly. Some of his add-ons aren't great at all. They just sort of make things slightly faster. The recharge rate's awful, but genuinely, his insta down is phenomenal, and it's terrifying for survivors. Absolutely terrifying for them. Just sort of see him burning across the map is just it's incredibly scary, and I love it. Okay, moving on now. I am going to be putting in Myers, and I think the reason for Myers being in the A tier on mobile is due to the lack of maps. There are a lot less maps. That we don't have Ormond, we don't have Red Forest, we don't have Backwater Swamp, we don't have all these huge maps. So without these huge maps, this slowdown that he gets in tier 1 doesn't really affect him that much. So you can get out of tier 1 pretty quickly, and being able to choose when you go into your power. So for example, Oni, you can absorb the blood orbs, choose when you use it. Myers, you can 99 that tier 2, and you can choose in a chase just to add that little bit of stalk and then insta down them. That in itself for me makes Myers A tier. Next up we have the Nurse. Now I've put the Nurse here instead of S tier because of on mobile she is quite difficult to learn. I think she's difficult to learn on all platforms, but she's really hard to sort of get them sort of quick turns with your thumbs whilst playing on mobile. Of course she can go through walls, she can go through pallets, and when you practice and practice you can get really good with her. And she is fun once you've worked out how to use her, but you have to go through a lot of frustration, and for me the frustration puts her down one, and also the fact that you don't have the same mobility with your hands as you would with a keyboard and mouse or a controller as you do with a touchscreen on your phone. So for me that drops Nurse down. Next on the A tier we have the Doctor. The Doctor, if you use Whispers 3, guarantees you at the start of a match you will find someone within 30 seconds and be in a chase. The fact that he can shock at loops and stop them from dropping pallets, his anti-loop, his tracking ability, the fact that it messes with their skill checks, the fact that they have to snap out of it before they can get on gens, the fact that you see a little doctor where they are, just it appears, oh well they're over there. You can have add-ons that add a red stain when you're in chase, so your red stain's no longer affecting them. All of these things make Doctor so strong. Is he the strongest killer in the game? No. Is he probably one of the strongest A tier ones? Yes he is. And for that, I mean, you have to agree that he is A tier. I mean, for me at the minute, he's up there near the top. And the next one we're going for is Pyramid Head, and he is going to be A tier. I'd love to say that he was S tier. I think the survivors are going to work out how to get around his ranged attack. I think sometimes you don't really want to use his cage ability because it means you can't use things like Pop Goes the Weasel. You can't use barbecue and chili. All of these great perks that we have as killer, you can't use them because of his cage ability. Yes, his anti-loop is phenomenal. The fact that you can just negate DS by using the cage is just phenomenal. He's got great presence there in the game, but again, map pressure wise, he's not a high mobility killer. So he really is A tier for me, just missing out on that S tier. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to go for Spirit, and Spirit is S tier on mobile. No doubt about it, she is S tier on mobile. And the reason for this is the red marks. You use Strider on Spirit in Dead by Daylight mobile, and if they run Iron Will 3, it doesn't matter. You can physically see the red marks on screen of exactly where a survivor is when you're in your power. If you use the mother-daughter ring, the speed of which you move across these smaller maps is insane. I don't know how anyone can lose using Spirit. She is so overpowered on mobile. She has hardly any counter other than sort of the killer being bad. She is very, very good, and probably, for me, the best killer in Dead by Daylight mobile at the moment. She is easy to pick up. So easy to pick up. She's easy to master. I mean, one of her mind games is standing still. You can stand still and get a free hit. It's insane. She is so powerful. She belongs in S tier. And for me, the last one we have here is the Hag. And she's S for me. Which could be very controversial, and people may not think she's very strong, but you cannot play Hag like you play any other killer. What you do with Hag is you spend the start of the game setting up a sea of traps all the way across one side of the map. You set up a 4-gen on one side of the map if you can, and you just cover pallets, loops, everything. And then you lose gens, but you don't care. You do not care if you lose gens as Hag, because if you set up a proper web of traps and you are quick enough with your thumbs to make the decision and sort of teleport to your trap and hit the survivor, get your trap back down on the floor again after the hit, you don't lose with Hag. You know, you shouldn't lose with Hag. I mean, the only things that could screw you is if they bring a key in, because they'll be doing the gen, so the hatch will appear. But for me, once you get going with Hag and the survivors do the gens on the other side of the map and move over to the one side they can only be in, you don't lose. She is so underrated. It is unbelievable. I hardly see anyone playing Hag, and when I do see them, they do not play Hag right. They play Hag like they're trying to play every other killer. They engage in chases. You do not engage in chase with Hag. You teleport, you hit, you teleport, you hit, you put your web back down. You make the survivors come to you by only giving them the gens they need to do in your web of traps. And as long as you do that, you should win every game as Hag. And that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know down in the comments what you think about my selections, whether you agree or disagree with them. Here's the full list. And yeah, let me know if you agree or disagree and what you think. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it, and see you next time.